You're listening to the Better for America podcast, presented by AMAC, the Association of Mature American Citizens.
Hi, everybody. I'm Rebecca Weber, and this is your AMAC podcast, Better for America. And with us today is Martha Boneta. Now, I wanted to give you a little background about this gal. She is an American policy advisor, a commentator, and a farmer who is known for her role in the passage of landmark right to farm law in the Commonwealth of Virginia. She was featured in the 2015 documentary film Farming in Fear, which featured Boneta's legislative successes. So we're going to talk to Martha a little bit about that. That film, by the way, it won the People's Choice Award. So it was a really good film, well done. And what I'm interested to talk to Martha about, so we can all learn, is she was behind the Boneta bills, both 1 and 2, which was overcoming regulations and political red tape. Now, Martha, I have to share with people, you're so involved in so many things. You've got you do so much good work. For example, you're the founder of the Piedmont Agriculture Academy, the Liberty Hall Livestock Rescue. You've been on the board of directors for the Virginia Independent Consumers and Farmers Association, and the list goes on, which is really wonderful. You were on the board of governors for the Council of National Policy, and named Executive Vice President of Citizens for the Republic. Martha, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. We are living in extraordinary times in our nation, and the great work that you do is so appreciated by me personally and by, sounds like you have, how many members do you have? Millions of memberships all over the country?
That's right. So we've got 59,000 AMAC members in the state of Virginia, and we're just nearing the 2.4 million mark, which is really great. But we're the old David versus Goliath story, the AARP having 30 million members, and a lot of folks don't realize the lobbying work they do. So we're small compared to AARP, but our benefits are better, and we're fighting the good fight, Martha. I want to share with our listeners, many of whom own farms. I know that your heart and soul. I heard you speak that growing up, you had a dream of being a farmer.
Yes.
And your family owned and operated a 64-acre farm located in Virginia. Can you share with the folks listening? What exactly caused you really to go from the farm to the White House, in a sense? I know you've done a lot of work, in that area. And so how did you do that? And what exactly happened that caused you to file a lawsuit?
Sure. So I'm a native Virginian, youngest of 3 girls, grew up in a hardworking family in Mount Vernon, Virginia. And, my parents taught us when we were growing up in the United States of America, you can be anything you want in life. If you work hard and you're willing to be disciplined, the sky's the limit. And so I never dreamed that I would work so hard to make my childhood dream come true of being a farmer, come to a crashing halt when the government shut me down. And I had no idea that that would put me on this path to where I am today, where I work very hard all across our country to fight for laws and legislation that help provide more opportunity and less red tape for the American people, and try to lift up people into office, candidates into office, great American patriots that will fight for us and fight for more liberty, more opportunity, more prosperity, and less government overregulation. But how it started is that I graduated from law school. I worked in corporate America. And I had an opportunity to leave corporate America to fulfill my childhood dream of being a farmer, owning a working farm in Virginia. And so I purchased a farm in 2006, a historic farm, or so we thought it was, that would allow me to begin farming. I put in 64 acres of fencing, lifted up the barn on hydraulic lifts, started living the American dream of having a working farm, which, by the way, farmers are the backbone of our nation. They built our country. And one would think that the government would want to lift up the small family farmer, provide lots of opportunity for small family farmers. But instead, we were immediately hit with a stand down notice threatening us with $15,000 a day if we kept our farm open to the public. This
Unbelievable.
was absolutely shocking to us.
Mm.
Had no idea that this would be the case, that the government would come in and literally shut us down. And that's what started this battle. We were engaging in agritourism. We were bringing the public to our farm. Some as American as apple pie, pumpkin patches, corn mazes. I mean, these things should be embraced, right? Particularly in Virginia, where agriculture is our number one industry. It produces hundreds of thousands of jobs, billions of dollars into the economy. And instead, I was shut down. And lo and behold, it was because an NGO, an environmental group, was colluding and conspiring with the local government to shut down our family farm. They claimed that the farm was historic, hallowed ground, that Stonewall Jackson himself had bivouacked on our farm, when in fact there was no historic evidence whatsoever that Stonewall Jackson had ever stepped foot on our farm. But to make a long story short, it, there are times in your life when you have to pick your battle, and this group colluding with the local government had sent in every government agency to cause us trouble on our farm until they ultimately shut us down. And it was my childhood dream. I had worked very hard my whole life to fulfill this dream, and that's when my family, we prayed about it, we talked about it, and that's when I became engaged in truly advocating on a state level and then on a national level to provide more opportunity to small family farmers and landowners, regardless of whether the land is being farmed, to protect property rights, to protect the American dream, to prevent what happened to my family from happening to anybody else. It took 10 years, but we changed the law not once, but twice. There's two bills named after me in the oldest legislative body in the country in Virginia. It's an incredible honor and a privilege. The Boneta Bill 1 means that if you own land zone rural agricultural and you're engaged in farming, the government cannot come in and require you to pay a fee to farm, and they can't require you to go through this ridiculous miles and miles of red tape in order to engage in farming or agritourism, because really at the end of the day, freedom stands on the shoulders of property rights. And if it could happen to me, it could happen to anybody. And it's just been an honor and a privilege to have my legislation be modeled all over the nation to really protect the rights of farmers, and also to fortify and further secure our property rights. The right to farm law is codified into law in almost every state in the country. And so it's so egregious and outrageous to think that an environmental group, an NGO, could come in and literally shut the doors of a small producer. And I'm very honored and pleased to tell you that not only are farmers given more opportunity as a result of this legislation, but also it's created the ability for people to see that you can really fight back against City Hall. You can beat government overregulation. And what the film does is that it teaches that if you're willing to stand up and fight against this burdensome red tape that not just small family farmers experience, but small businesses experience all over the nation. We've seen that recently, of course, with COVID and the shutdowns and the shuttering of small businesses that were really never given an opportunity to thrive. Many of them will never be opened again. But what this does is it teaches that you can organize in your local communities, and how once you engage, at least for me anyway, we can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. I am out there fighting every day, not just for agriculture, and farmers and property rights, but for egregious overregulation, because we do live in the greatest nation on earth, and I want to be able to secure the American dream for generations to come.
Wow, that's great. And I applaud your courage, really, because we know that this has happened to other people, other farmers, folks that maybe didn't have the resources or the ability to take it to the level in which you did. And so you won that lawsuit, and out of that came some real change that will have some long-lasting positive impact on America. So thank you. I want to shift and ask for your opinion on Biden's liberal policies. We see here at AMAC that they are negatively impacting not just farms and ranches in America, but all business. And I actually just read an article yesterday that from the American Farm Bureau, that the Biden tax plan would raise taxes on farms and ranches And despite his promise, we heard him say that, he wasn't going to raise taxes, but this is all coming to head. What are your thoughts about the Biden
Yeah, sure.
administration and
Sure.
their extreme left liberal policies? How should businesses, how do you think they'll be impacted?
Well, the impact is huge. I mean, I have some figures for you here. The price of steel is up 145%. Lumber is up 126%. Wheat is up 25%. The cost of food is up 25%. Cotton 35%. Silver 38%. Copper 50%. Oil, we're going to talk about that. Oil is up 80%. That's all in 70 days.
Wow.
And the American people, I don't care if you're a Republican, Democrat, independent, undecided, we vote with our pocketbooks, because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we can provide for our families and for ourselves, have a roof over our head, provide food and clothing and education, healthcare. I mean, these are kitchen table issues that affect all of us. And we're seeing it right here, right now. I mean, listen, when President Trump was in the White House, we had secure borders.
Yes.
We were energy independent. We were exporting oil. I mean, right now here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, there are lines people are waiting in line for hours to get gas. Many of the gas stations around have no gas whatsoever. This impacts everyday life, the ability to go grocery shopping, to take your kids to school, that is, if they're open, the ability to go to work, to go to the doctor. I mean, this affects every aspect of our lives. And the Biden administration recently just said, well, if you had an electric car, this gas shortage wouldn't affect you.
Yeah.
It's that kind of hubris that is so egregious in the face of a crisis that Americans are experiencing now. And, this crisis, while it is said to be related to a cyber breach, it really plays into the narrative that the Biden-Harris administration has of doing away completely with fossil fuels. So for the White House to say, well, gee, if you had an electric car, this wouldn't be impacting you, is really quite shameful.
It really is. And I was just speaking to my family earlier today about that very issue and almost scratching my head. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but you almost wonder, they're taking this crisis and they're using words and language to try to influence people, really manipulate people, right? And so I'm so glad that you're pointing to those numbers too, because when Joe Biden and his team promised the American people that if you made under a certain amount of money, you wouldn't pay more. But we're seeing it in the cost of goods and services because of the burdens that he's putting on business. And you said it yourself, Trump did such good. Not only was he excellent when it came to putting America first and protecting us, but he cut regulations. And can you share with us some of the successes under Trump? Because Biden loves to steal every success Trump had and call it his own.
You're absolutely correct. For every new regulation that came into play during the Trump administration, on average, 21 to 22 were sent to the trash bin. So I want you to think about that, how powerful that is. For every new piece of regulation that came through the Trump administration, on average, 20 to 22 were sent packing. And that really speaks to the promise. When you think of promises made, promises kept, President Trump did more in the first 500 days of his presidential legacy than any president had ever done before that. I can give you an example right now, which is near and dear to all of us. If you're watching the news, less than 48 hours ago, rockets were over the Holy Land in Israel. And I wanted you to think about that and compare that to President Trump's legacy in bringing peace in the Middle East with the Abraham peace accord.
That was a wonderful, wonderful success under Trump.
And when you think about that too, here's a president, 5 consecutive presidents on both sides of the aisle promised to move the embassy to Jerusalem. Right? He's the only one that did. He declared sovereignty over the Golan Heights. I can go on and on and on. I mean, did you ever think you would see Bahrain and Israel, in peace talks? I mean, and yet here we are now, and many argue on the brink of war with rockets over Israel. So, that's just one example. Another example, of course, is securing our borders. We are in a crisis right now in our borders. There's been 178,000 migrant interactions at the border. Think about that. Under the Trump administration, we had secure borders. Unemployment was at an all-time low. I mean, we are in a situation where in just a short period of time, this administration has unwound the safety and the security that the American people had under the Trump administration.
Yeah. And I just pray that people recognize it, and they sure will. It will begin to affect their pocketbook. AMAC members overwhelmingly voted Donald Trump as our man of the year. And we've got this great award for him that we're hoping to have a moment so that we can present that to him. I want to talk about Trump and his tremendous influence and the power that he has. He is certainly a leader. And we see today that Glenn Youngkin won the governor's primary. Yes. And so he was endorsed by President Trump. So, Martha, I'm just curious, what do you think that Donald Trump had to do with that win? Do you think his influence was what put him over?
First of all, the entire nation is watching Virginia. Virginia is only one of two states, the other being New Jersey, that has gubernatorial elections right now. We just completed our Republican convention primary. It was very unusual. It was an unassembled convention, a drive-through convention, because under the current administration, under Governor Northam, he has such strict and rigid gathering requirements because of COVID that we were unable to have a traditional convention. So these were drive-through conventions in 40 different locations across the Commonwealth of Virginia. Meanwhile, the entire nation is looking at Virginia to see what happens, because this is the first gubernatorial election since Biden took office. And so we have our primary nominees, and they are Glenn Youngkin, who is an outsider, a businessman. He comes to Virginia. He was born and raised in Virginia, but he had a global business, employed thousands of people all over the world, turned it into a multi-billion-dollar enterprise. And he is running as a conservative, as a jobs creator, as somebody that will not require, much like DeSantis in Florida, these vaccine passports. He wants to open up our schools from day one, and he is going to bring prosperity and put Virginia on the map again. When I grew up I grew up in Virginia. Virginia was always a red state. And of course, it no longer is. But I believe that with this ticket, which includes Winsome Sears, she is an immigrant, a Black female conservative who's a Marine. She loves Virginia and she loves America, and she has created a platform for making America first in Virginia. And we want to see that all across our nation. And then, of course, for our Attorney General, he is of Cuban descent, and we have the most diverse gubernatorial ticket in the history of our nation. And we are so excited about beating Terry McAuliffe. The Democrats, have not had their primary yet. So they will be having theirs in about a month. So we have a head start in the sense that we have our ticket. We know we have a winning ticket, and we can't wait to beat Terry McAuliffe to put Virginia on the map. And President Trump did endorse Glenn Youngkin in this race, but he did so after the primary. So he did endorse Glenn Youngkin. He did it after he had already won the primary election. And in terms of President Trump's role moving forward, President Trump is a great American. I think we can all agree that he put America first. He put our workers first, and he did so because he loves our nation, and he is a kingmaker. We are seeing this time and time again, that when President Trump endorses a candidate, that candidate receives overwhelming support. And in Virginia, by way of example, and this is a great bellwether, if you will, for the nation, we had over 53,000 delegates in Virginia for the Republican convention primary that would determine our gubernatorial ticket. Unprecedented,
That
not
is
just in Virginia,
great.
but across the nation. It is the largest delegation ever in a primary convention. So that really speaks to us and to those of us like you that are following this all across our country, the tremendous impact that President Donald J. Trump has had on our election cycle and on the future of American politics.
Yeah, I know so many people are hoping, praying, and just really wanting him to run again for president in
Yes.
2024. Whether or not that happens, I don't think any of us quite really know. Uh, but needless to say, I think that if he does stay behind the scenes and works, to help win these elections so that we can get back the House and the Senate, I think he can be extremely effective. And he's clearly looking to remain involved, and people want him and need him. So let's hope and pray that that he doesn't go anywhere.
Yes, absolutely.
That's right. I want to ask you a little bit about the 2020. We saw the election in 2020 saw so many women elected to the House of Representatives, more than ever before. And so with more women getting involved in conservative politics, I'm thinking that traditional attitudes about party alignment, that could really begin to change. For example, just take our Second Amendment. If more and more women, if that's the growing number of people that are purchasing firearms, women and minorities, they may begin to vote along those lines, voting for strong protection of Second Amendment rights. How do you think more women getting involved in conservative politics could change the future landscape of America?
Well, by way of example, President Trump elevated more women into senior positions in his administration and minorities than any other administration before him. And we're seeing that impact as well. I'm the youngest of three girls. I grew up in Virginia. My father taught us all how to use guns safely and properly. He was a lifetime member of the NRA. I had the privilege of being inducted into the National Capital Area Friends of the NRA. And that was a privilege of a lifetime to have that blessing upon me. And I think that what you are seeing is that women are the fastest growing leaders in industries all across the board, all across our nation. And you're going to see in elections as they unfold, whether it's in your locality, in your state elections, nationally, you're going to see more conservative women coming to the table and running for positions and winning. And we just saw it right here in Virginia in our lieutenant governor's race with Winsome Sears,
Right.
who will be the next lieutenant governor of Virginia.
Oh, wow. That's great. I guess I want to ask you, going back to Virginia and the future of Virginia. It was red. We saw it go blue. I think that we're seeing that a big shift there, as you've outlined earlier. My concern, one of AMAC's major concerns, is this HR1 S1 bill, which is passed the House. It's the For the People's Act. It's a federal takeover of our elections, and I'm asking you, do you think that there is opportunity for change, like on the ground level in states like Virginia and some key areas in other states, for true election reform? I mean, I believe that we can get a lot done. AMAC has done a tremendous amount in helping to push bills and get bills passed. And we've had hundreds of thousands of emails sent to state legislators and senators pushing back on any type of egregious takeover, federal takeover. But what do you think we can do at the state level? And what do you think S1, if passed, will pass? And what kind of a threat should people know exists in that bill?
The American people should be terrified because election integrity, when we did polling in Virginia, one of the number one issues that voters, the citizenry, were concerned about, election integrity. Time and time and time again, election integrity. We the people, our vote matters. It is sacred. And if we can't secure our election integrity, it is something that will upset the American dream. And everybody should be losing sleep over this. In Virginia, for example, our nominees have pledged and vowed that they will make election integrity one of their number one platform issues, including requiring a photo ID. Imagine that. Like in Virginia, up until not too long ago, when the administration, when the governing of Virginia through the governor's mansion was taken over by the Democrats, we had voter ID requirements, and of course we haven't ever since. And time and time again, we've had individuals voting in our elections that did not have the qualifications to be Virginia voters. They lived in other states, illegals voting. I can go on and on and on, because there's been no form of verification as to residency or even to prove your identity in order to vote. And so I'm very pleased to say that our ticket has pledged to make voter integrity, election integrity, a platform issue. And I believe that they will have, and that they do have, the best and the most sophisticated technology and experts engaged from day one, when the Republican ticket takes over the Virginia governor's mansion. From day one, we'll be able to start implementing an infrastructure in place to protect our elections.
Amen. That's what we want. That's what the American people want. And I often feel that the Democrats must think people like me stupid, and we're not. We see exactly what they're doing. We understand that they're looking to really have a federal one-party rule take over, no more bipartisanship. And so it's very, very self-serving. And those are the things that average American people are going to slowly begin to recognize and realize as we see states that are adopting smart policies do so well. You take Florida and New York and compare the two states, they're night and day, and it's directly tied to leadership. And so, here at AMAC, we're working to get the truth out. I want to encourage people that are listening to go to amacaction.org, because you can get involved on a grassroots level. You can become an AMAC delegate. You can do a lot of work. And you are such an inspiration, Martha, because you are the walking, living example of what one person can do. And so I applaud you. It's just an absolute honor to have you with us here today.
Thank you.
Yeah, I had a great
thank
time.
You. There isn't a day that goes by that I don't thank God for the privilege of being an American. I feel incredibly grateful and blessed for the opportunities that we have here in our nation. There's a reason why people fight with every breath that they take to come to the United States of America. The last time I checked, people aren't sacrificing literally everything to go to Venezuela, right? I mean, I'm not aware of anybody that does that, but I'll tell you where people come from all over the world. And that's for the opportunity and the privilege to just have a taste of the American dream. And we have to fight for it. And that's where we are now. I feel blessed to be alive for such a time as this. And I want everybody to take action in your local community, become engaged with AMAC Action. It's about we the people, and it's about protecting what makes America America. And when you spoke of Florida and Governor DeSantis, and I actually have a quote from Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who's running for governor in Arkansas. And I know this is a pre-record, but if you don't mind, I'd like to get it and read it, because I think it's...
I'd love for you to. Please do that.
So this is a quote from my friend, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who of course was President Trump's press secretary. She's running now for governor in Arkansas. She will be the governor of Arkansas. And this is her quote from today. "There's a crisis at the border. Israel is under attack. Prices are skyrocketing, and businesses can't hire because our incompetent federal government is paying workers to stay home. Joe Biden's presidency is already a total disaster, and our governors must step up and lead."
That is great. I think we're going to retweet that or repost that. Alyssa's going to get that up on our Facebook, because that is a really powerful message, and it is the truth. It is absolutely the truth. And it's also, there's some hope there too, because again, people are not stupid, and America is not racist. We're a wonderful nation. There's some,
Sure.
hardworking American patriots in this country that don't like and see through the bad policies on the left. So thank you for being a voice. Thank you for the work that you do on behalf of the AMAC's over 2 million members. Martha, thank you for joining us here today. And for all of you listening, we look forward to having you back with us again next time on AMAC's podcast, Better for America. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you for listening to the Better for America podcast. To learn more about AMAC and all it has to offer, visit us at www.amac.us.